This is the Pixel 2 XL, a device that on the one hand is great. As Google's flagship, it brings everything you would expect from a Pixel along with some really nice added features. But at the same time, there's a few problems or a few bad decisions from Google that lead this otherwise minimalistic experience into feeling almost unfinished. But there is still a lot to love about this device. It brings together everything I loved about the Nexus and the first generation Pixel lines, and adds a little bit of 2018 into the mix. And the result from this is one great phone for the most part. Design-wise, this phone really shines. Its distinctively Pixel looks mean you couldn't really mistake this for any other device even if you tried. The two-tone design previously seen on the original Pixel is now brought forward, and it looks, in my opinion, better than any phone released to date. This recycled design has been refined for this model with changes like the increased curve to the accent glass, the orange accent power button, and the now super curved edges to the screen being included. And whilst yes, none of these help with durability in any way, they do however bring the phone together into being one seriously comfortable device to use, but I would definitely recommend using a very protective case with this device. There is more of a camera bump than we saw on the original Pixel, so the phone does rock around a little bit on a flat surface. It's definitely not a deal breaker to me, because once you see what this camera can do, you will definitely forgive the bump. Just below the glass accent is the fingerprint scanner, and as you'd expect, it is among one of the most reliable and the most fastest out there right now. For someone with smaller hands, it may be a little bit difficult to reach because this is quite a big phone, but for me, I haven't had any issues. As for the I/O, just 1 year after they made fun of Apple, there is now no headphone jack on this device. And actually, this is another one of the areas that I've had a massive problem with. So the dongle I've had problems with since day one, with issues like the phone not recognizing it, or the phone trying to charge the dongle and recognizing it as a USB output but not putting audio through it. Usually a restart will fix the problems, but I haven't been able to use an inline control unit with this dongle at any point. I can forgive the absence of a 3.5mm jack, but please Google, just include a solution that works. Thankfully, listening to music through the audio codec in this phone is amazing. It's actually on par with the iPhone X in my opinion, and it just sounds great. And what you give up in a headphone jack, you do get back in IP67 waterproofing, which I haven't personally found a use for, but it is nice to have. There's a couple of areas where this phone really shines, and the build quality is one of them. Despite the lack of durability from the curves, the phone really does feel great in the hand. It's got a good weight to body ratio, and the materials used do feel premium, even if there are some problems with them. The plastic coating on the back of the phone that gives the phone its white colour actually does make the phone feel a bit cheaper than you would expect from a flagship, and my main concern is that this could wear away as we've seen with the Nexus 5X over some use. In fact, around the charging port on my device, the coating has actually begun to wear away, and this is only from 2 months worth of use. This is one of my biggest problems with the phone, and I'm really doubtful about how long the coating will last if this phone gets used without a case. Since the release of the screen on this phone has been a controversial topic, with issues such as blue shift and burn-in appearing within minutes of use. Now, you could be lucky if you buy one these days because the screen issues have been fixed with the newer production units, but sadly mine has the blue shift problem. Google has done its best to make the display better for the earlier produced units, with the inclusion of colour settings for more accurate colour selection, and the navigation bar now dims itself to a very low grey point to prevent that screen burn-in. I do feel like a lot of people blew these issues out of perspective. I don't personally know anyone who uses their phone on a weird angle, and whilst yes, the colour shift is a real thing that plagues a lot of devices, you honestly don't notice it as much as a lot of people made out you would. If you look past these issues, this 6-inch screen can be great. Sure, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to reach the top of the screen with one hand, and I do find myself using two hands on this phone more often than I'd like to admit, but it is really a good screen regardless. It's 18:9, has a resolution of 2880x1440, and a DPI of 538, which is just insane. It may not be the most bezel-less display out there, but a screen-to-body ratio of 76.4% is still really good, and will honestly fit in with any modern day phone. We also have the selfie camera up in the top left corner, which along with Google's insane AI camera technology can produce some killer photos. The actual specifications of the front camera unit are an 8-megapixel sensor with an f2.4 aperture, but the real magic here lies within the software. As you're probably aware by now, the portrait mode on the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL is the best of any device right now. Portrait selfies have been around on this phone for a couple of months, and the result is insane. I'm not personally a selfie taker, but for someone who is, this phone will definitely not disappoint. And in my opinion, the best part of this phone is that rear camera. They say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and this single camera with a 12.2-megapixel sensor and f1.8 aperture may not sound so impressive compared to the competition, but don't let numbers fool you. Not a single device released after or even before the Pixel 2 can even compare to the quality that this device delivers. The images that come out of this camera are pure, clean, and just natural, and it leads me to believe that the camera on this phone is the best of any phone ever released. Photos are rich in detail, color quality, and accuracy. They have really good sharpness, a great dynamic range, but most of all, the camera can take a good photo in any situation you throw at it. The portrait mode on this phone is also the best I have ever seen. The ability this phone has to separate objects is crazy, and sure, it's not perfect all of the time, and occasionally it will fail to separate whole objects, but once you've taken the photo, it gives you the portrait and non-portrait images just in case it goes wrong. In the normal photo mode, you can achieve photos that just look really, really great. There is a little bit of post-processing that goes into this high dynamic range look, but honestly, that is perfectly welcome for me because it just makes the photos look better. The video quality is also great on this phone, so it's 4K with a decent bitrate, but it uses OIS and EIS to create one really stable shot even when handheld like this. Now, probably the biggest reason why a lot of people buy a Pixel phone is because you get the latest software updates as soon as they come out. Out of the box, you will have Android 8 installed, but recently the Android 9 beta has actually become so much more stable and just works. I would definitely recommend anyone to sign up. It's the handy little features like the always on display and the now playing song detection that I find really useful, and both of these just work really well. I can pull my phone out of my pocket and just know what song is playing in the background even if my phone isn't connected to the internet. It's a really well thought out system, and it's just one of those little details that kind of makes this phone into being distinctively Pixel. I'm a big fan of the new navigation methods within Android 9, and the new swipe gestures finally improve the old age navigation that we were used to from the beginning of Android. The entire UI that was previously used through Android 8, 7 and even 6 has finally been changed to a more rounded, more organised look through Android 9. And the 5 suggested apps in your multitasking tray are now based on your usage patterns instead of just randomly popped up. And actually the greatest part of a Pixel device is the pure unadulterated version of Android that comes with only the bare necessities for a phone. As a big fan of stock Android, I was set with this phone straight out of the box, but with the inclusion of Android 9, the experience is completely unmatched. The performance that you get from the mix of software optimization and hardware power gives one of the greatest experience you will ever get with an Android device. Just for full disclosure, I do use this device with the animation speed set to half, so just bear that in mind when you're watching this next little section. Even without those settings, the Snapdragon 835 CPU and the 8GB of RAM can actually drive a lot of power into the performance. I haven't found a single moment of stuttering, lag, or any moments where this phone underperforms at any point throughout my use. And I guess this is the biggest factor of this phone which nobody seems to be talking about. Because the phone is made by Google for Google hardware, not only do you get the latest version first, but you also get an experience that is optimized around the hardware available, just like an iPhone does. I've personally never experienced an Android device that quite compares to this phone, even through 2018. And the software optimization leads to one awesome battery life experience. I'm able to get over 16 hours of daily use before I even have to go near a wall outlet. But what really makes this phone for me is the little touches that Google have added, like the orange power button or the wholesome charging sound whenever you plug the phone in. It's these little details that make this phone to me feel well refined and like it's a final revision of something. These days most phones aren't that different from the previous generation, and that makes this phone a great choice for anyone today. I don't believe they'll be able to improve the Pixel line all that significantly this year. They've just about made the perfect device with the Pixel 2. So if you're watching this video and thinking of buying a Pixel 2 XL, pull the trigger now. This device can only get better from here.